Mr. President.
The senator for Kentucky.
Mr. President, we are in a period of morning business up to 10 minutes.
The senator is correct.
Thank you very much. I rise to speak on the conference report to the so-called stimulus bill. While we have not seen the actual bill, the outlines of the final agreement are available, and not much has changed from the bill since it passed the Senate earlier this week. The bill will still cost more than $1 trillion over the next 10 years after interest on the borrowed money necessary to finance the bill is added in. This is $1 trillion added to our national debt. And $1 trillion we have to take away from our American workers in the future to pay off that debt. That is why the bill also raises the limit on the national debt to over $12 trillion. That's almost a $2 trillion increase in the national debt. But, Mr. President, $1 trillion of new debt is not the whole story. Many of the tax and spending provisions in this bill last only a few months or years. The President and many in Congress have promised to extend those provisions or even make them permanent. Obviously, that means the cost of the bill, as written, does not show the true cost of the changes it puts in place. In fact, in a letter sent yesterday, the Congressional Budget Office said that when you add in the cost of extending the programs the President has promised to extend, the total cost of the bill over the next 10 years is actually $2.5 trillion. Add the interest on those $2.5 trillion of new debt, and the bill will cost the taxpayer $3.3 trillion over the next 10 years. That is $3.3 trillion we will have to tax our children, my grandchildren and your grandchildren, and our neighbors. Now, it is true the conference report is a bit smaller than the House-passed bill. So those numbers will have to be figured again when the final language is available. But they're close enough to understand the massive size of this debt spending bill. If all this new debt spending would actually fix the economy and create jobs, it might be worth it. But that is not what is going to happen here. Even the Congressional Budget Office agrees with that. In another letter they sent yesterday, they said the bill will reduce, now you heard me right, reduce GDP over the long term. They also estimated it will lower wages over the long term because government spending now will take money away from productivities used by the private sector later. We cannot spend our way out of this crisis. The solution to the crisis that was created by too much debt is not more debt, and America cannot afford to waste several trillion dollars. If we really want to stimulate the economy, we need to focus our attention on tax cuts for individuals, investments, and businesses. We need to enact legislation that will have a direct and immediate impact. We need a bill that will create more jobs through targeted tax relief, not a bill that will spend money on programs that offer no immediate or long-term return to the American taxpayer. We could have done that on this bill, but the majority refused to work with the minority to craft a truly bipartisan bill. In all of Congress, there were only 3 members of the minority who supported this flawed spending bill. 3 out of 218 does not make this a bipartisan bill. So, Mr. President, I will close with this. I hope the actual bill is made available with time for senators and the American public to examine it before we vote. I cannot support the conference report that has been described by the House and Senate leadership, and I hope that we can do better the next time. Thank you, Mr. President, and I ask unanimous consent that the 2 letters from the Congressional Budget Office I mentioned earlier be placed in the record following my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
I yield the floor.